Hello, I'm Gary and I'm a solution engineer at CyberGRX. The goal of my presentation is to provide an overview and demonstration of how CyberGRX can help Acme Mega Corp address process inefficiencies and build a world-class third-party cyber risk program. To properly set expectations, let's go over the agenda. I'll start by summarizing my understanding of the impact of the challenges you outlined on our previous call and what an ideal state might look like. Next, I'll present insights from the analysis of your vendor portfolio. If we stay on track, we should arrive in your production software environment for a live demonstration in less than 5 minutes. The last time we spoke, you said that your primary challenge was that due diligence was causing delays in new vendor onboarding. I also captured that your current assessments were offering little in the way of actionable insight. Additionally, we discovered that management has growing concerns regarding your exposure to cybercrime coming from your third-party ecosystem. In a perfect world, assessments for vendors you need to onboard would already be complete and waiting to review, and the highest priority findings would already be called out. And finally, as a result of the increase in cybercrime impacting third parties, you would have push-button visibility into how emerging threats are intersecting with your critical assets through your vendor engagements. It sounds like if Acme could eliminate onboarding delays, a significant blocker would be addressed in bringing new products to market, and security personnel would be freed up to focus on risk reduction and higher value tasks. Providing management with actionable reporting of how to address emerging threats could improve overall understanding of the value of Acme's third-party risk function. At the end of the demonstration, my goal is for you to agree that CyberGRX can help Acme build a world-class third-party cyber risk program. When it comes to vendor onboarding delays impacting business objectives, Acme is not alone. In a survey performed by Deloitte, each year, more and more companies are frustrated with the time-consuming due diligence process. And in the most recent survey, half of organizations began implementing progressive alternatives to the traditional due diligence process in order to onboard third parties faster. The good news is that we can fast-track your program. Upon loading your CyberGRX portfolio with the vendor file you sent last week, we identified that 37% of your vendors are already members on the exchange. This constitutes a significant vendor onboarding improvement for Acme. When onboarding companies not yet on the exchange, Acme can leverage predictive intelligence, which uses artificial intelligence to identify capabilities and weaknesses in vendor security. Our customers use predictive intelligence as an alternative to traditional self-assessment when time is of the essence. Let's take a look at what exposures to cybercrime we were able to identify as a result of entering your vendors into your CyberGRX portfolio. Acme has nearly 200 critical vendors, which are indicated by the orange bar here on the right. But there are third parties in the medium and low risk tiers exposed to vulnerabilities as well. The lower tier vendors are not typically top of mind until a crisis breaks, such as SolarWinds, Kaseya, or even Apache Log4j. Our customers tell us that whenever there is a newly identified application vulnerability, they have to scramble to triage the impact. By having all your cyber-relevant third parties in one portfolio, you can minimize the chaos when a crisis unfolds. An analysis of your high inherent risk vendors revealed that 43% are vulnerable to a follow-on ransomware or supply chain disruption, meaning that vendors in this grouping displayed a toxic combination of either attested or predicted deficiencies which signal high risk for exploitation. Let's look at who some of these vendors are. Keeping with your high inherent risk vendors, we have now drilled in to see the 10 with the most risk. This chart shows me the inherent and predicted residual risk of each vendor. The vendors with predicted residual risk that exceeds my risk tolerance will need to be assessed and treated before I can resume business as usual. When you have a single source of truth for your entire vendor portfolio, you can quickly drill down to what you care about most. I want to point out swipe point of sale when we get into your production portfolio as an example of the easy things you can do to remediate high-risk concerns. Let's transition now into your portfolio and see some examples of vendor analysis when an assessment is and isn't available for immediate consumption. This chart illustrates all vendors in your portfolio by inherent risk. The higher up in the chart you go, the higher the likelihood the vendor is to experience a cyber event. The farther right the vendor appears in the chart indicates the impact that likely event will have on Acme. As such, these third parties in the upper right-hand quadrant are the riskiest in your portfolio. Swipe point of sale is among them. I'm happy to orient you to other portfolio visualizations by providing you with content via the customer portal. But in the interest of time, let's drill in and examine Swipe's security profile and see why it's one of your riskiest vendors. Swipe has a few high priority findings. Security awareness training is the #1 defense against phishing attempts. Phishing is also the #1 delivery system of ransomware. Now we know why Swipe made our top 10 riskiest vendors report. Let's drill into Swipe's questionnaire and find more details on this deficiency. Upon reviewing Swipe's questionnaire responses, Acme should recommend that Swipe add additional topical areas to its security training modules, which will be both low cost and high impact. Since Swipe is already delivering awareness training to its employees, this should be a very simple remediation. We don't have time to cover all visualizations today, but I want to take a moment to introduce the residual risk line chart. Not only can you see inherent and predicted risk scores all in one place, but you can also see how the vendor scored in each outcome category. After all, data loss, disruption, destruction, and fraud are the risks your team and CyberGRX are in the business of managing. In our discovery call, you mentioned that your management had expressed concern related to exposure to cybercrime. This chart shows me that even with the findings we reviewed, the risk of a data loss or disruptive event is relatively low for Swipe point of sale. And since Swipe has authorized Acme to review its attested assessment results, you can see that our prediction matches closely to the attested outcomes. Customers use this chart when starting out because it helps them build confidence in using the predictive intelligence capabilities of the platform over time. Before we break, let's quickly look at one of your vendors that hasn't yet completed a self-assessment. As you recall from the presentation, we have good coverage of the third parties you care about most, but periodically you'll need to triage vendors that haven't completed an assessment yet. CyberGRX is predicting that Atlas Cloud will have some control deficiencies related to patching, but RiskRecon and Recorded Future both have favorable opinions of its network controls and dark web hygiene. If the inherent risk of doing business with Atlas Cloud is not critical, I'm good to proceed to contracting without waiting for a full assessment to complete. But I'm going to go ahead and request that Atlas complete a lower tier assessment, even though I don't plan to delay my contracting for its completion for 2 reasons. 1, both I and Atlas have time to complete an assessment, and I want to set a proper expectation in the event that my inherent risk context should change. And 2, the CyberGRX subscription model is designed to incent having more security information in my portfolio, so it doesn't cost me any more to initiate an assessment now while I have the luxury of time than it does to rely solely on predictive intelligence. With CyberGRX, Acme Mega Corp will be armed with powerful insights regarding every vendor in its portfolio, when self-attested assessments are available for immediate review, and even when they're not. If I achieve my objective, you've seen a glimpse of how CyberGRX can improve vendor onboarding and provide actionable insights regarding your entire third-party ecosystem. At this point, organizations interested in finding out more will typically need to accomplish one or more of the following evaluation steps in order to know for sure if CyberGRX will work in their context. We typically find it takes between 15 and 30 days to work through an evaluation. Does it make sense to look at calendars now to schedule an evaluation kickoff?